Hi everybody, we're going to try doing our notes this way so that we don't spend as much class time doing this. It should give you a little bit more flexibility if you happen to have connectivity issues. So what we have started with first is called the metric conversions handout, and so that's what this looks like. First you need to know, and we've been saying this part in our lifetime US will switch over. I really currently don't have any hope that the US is ever going to switch over. It does make international trade much easier and improves communication if we all were on the same measurement system. But what you need to know, it's not more accurate. It's just that it's less to memorize. The American system has more to memorize. So if we're going to compare the metric system to the American system, some units of length of measurement in the American system involve things like inches, feet, miles, yards, okay? So things like that. In the metric system, the units that we're going to have in the metric system involve things like, and I need to, there it is, it involves things like the meter. Did you hear me say anything else? No, you did not, and that is because the only base unit for distance is the meter in the metric system. Well, what about volume? In volume, we have things like gallons, we have things like pints, we have things like quarts, we have things like cups, and we also have things like ounces. Okay? That's a lot to memorize. If you start thinking of all the things we have to memorize, that's a lot. So what about in the metric system? Well, in the metric system, we also have, and I have lost my highlighter. Let me go find my highlighter. There it is. We also just have a base unit, and that base unit is liters. Okay? What about units of weight? Well, we have things like tons, we have things like pounds. We have things like ounces. Look, we have ounces in two places, both in the volume and in the mass or weight part of things. We have a lot of ways of measuring mass. I'm sure you can think of some others. In the metrics, we only have one base unit, and that base unit is called a gram. Okay, cool. So if those are our three base units, that's where we find these right here, our three base units. If we want to represent a measurement that is either larger or bigger than that, many times we have to use prefixes. So we are going to use prefixes that are bigger than 1, meaning kilo for 1,000, hecta for 100, or deca for 10, or prefixes that mean something smaller, like deci for 1/10, centi for 100th, and milli for 1/1000th. And those are basically the ones that we are going to need to pay attention to. I didn't mention micro. You can see the symbol for micro right there. I didn't mention micro because micro isn't used as much, but you have heard micro before. We're going to have a mnemonic to be able to remember it. We're going to have king for kilo, Henry, hecta, died, deca, buy for base, drinking, deci, chocolate, centi, and M for milli or milk. Okay, so let's see if we can try using some of our prefixes. If we have 1/1,000,000th of a gram, we have a microgram, and I have cheated already. I've gotten myself that little symbol there because it's hard for me to get that symbol. So we're going to use microgram for that one. If we have 1,000 grams, we're going to use kilogram. If we have 1 billion liters, we are going to have a if we have 1 billion liters, we're going to have a gigaliter. If we're going to have 1,000th of a meter, then we are going to have a millimeter. And I'm going to erase some of this because it's making a mess of things. If we have 100th of a liter, then we have a centiliter. And if we have 1 million grams, then we have a megagram. Did you notice that time I used the capital M? And that's how we distinguish milli, 1,000th, but from mega or 1 million grams. So they're opposite of each other. One is very small, milli, and one is very large. Usually the convention here for the kilo is to use the kilo in a capital just to show that it's bigger than 1, so it's a capital. Okay, so let's see if we can try some in some scientific notation or some bigger numbers. Let's see here. So what we have here is, what is the metric abbreviation for 1 times 10 to the 3? Well, that's 1,000, and 1,000 grams is a kilogram. And what about 10 to the negative 12? 10 to the negative 12 is a super small one. That is a picometer. 10 to the 6 is the same as saying 1 million liters. So that is a mega. Notice the capital M, liter. 1/10 of a gram is a decigram, lowercase deci. 1,000 meters is a kilometer, km. And then looks like 1/1,000,000th. No, it's not 1/1,000,000th. It's 1/1,000,000,000th. And 1/1,000,000,000th is a nanoliter. Okay. So sometimes we just have to be able to convert between metric conversions. And so we set them up as a stair-step line. And you can use this one of 2 ways. You can either say, well, if I'm moving from the left to the right, then I have a decimal point that I'm going to move. However many places I move, that's how many places I'm going to move my decimal point, and I will add zeros as I move my decimal point. The other opposite way, if I'm moving from the right to the left, that is how many zeros I'm going to take away, or how many places I'm going to take away from the number. So our first example we're going to look at here is millimeter to decimeter. So I have a milli, which is right here, and I'm going to go to deci, and I have now moved to the right, which means I'm going to move my decimal place to the right, and that means I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. So the easiest thing for me to do is to write this down as 231. My decimal place is here, and that's going to be millimeters, and when I convert it, I'm going to move my decimal place 2 places to the right, so I will end up with 2.31 decimeters. Now, what about if I want to try that the other way? What if I want to instead try it by doing the division? So what if I'm moving to the right, and I'm moving from milli to deci, which is moving to a larger unit. So I am going to divide by 10/100. So this is going to be 231 divided by 100, and that would also give me 2.31 decimeters. Either way that works for you is fine. You're just putting the number of zeros that you divide by based on the number of spaces that you have moved. Okay, so let's try the next example, and the next example is going to be liters to centiliters. So now my liters, which is a base unit, is moving to a centiliter, which is 2 decimal places to the right. So let's try that. I'm going to do 5.43 liters becomes, and I'm going to move my decimal place 2 places to the right, so that becomes 543 centiliters. Now, the other way of doing it, since I am moving to the right, I am going to multiply. I'm going to multiply 5.43 times, and I'm going to multiply by 1 with however many zeros of these spaces I'm going to move. So this time I'm going to multiply by 100, and that is also going to give me 543 centiliters. Again, whichever way works best for you, that's the way that you want to do it. Okay,